Conscious Classroom Management, Unlocking the Secrets of Great Teaching by Rick Smith. Conscious Classroom Management is a must for any K-12 teacher. This book gives teachers practical, research-supported suggestions for effectively managing a classroom and specific tools that can be implemented very easily. This book should not be read once and put on a shelf, but instead keep it in your bathroom and read a quick tip every now and then to keep your classroom management on track. Rick Smith was a classroom teacher for over 14 years. He is now an education consultant and national presenter. On Mr. Smith's very first day of student teaching, he observed a teacher whose class was pretty flawless. Mr. Smith thought that teaching was going to be really easy and he would not need to discipline because he would be so engaging that all of his students couldn't wait to learn. Mr. Smith's dreams were crushed that same week when he observed a second class. The teacher asked students to open their books. Some did and some didn't, but there were complaints, chaos, and even paper airplanes. Mr. Smith asked himself, why can the same request asked of two groups of students result in opposite behaviors? I've wondered this many times teaching back-to-back classes. Conscious Classroom Management answers this question and many more. I will summarize some of my favorite points and what I would like to work on during the upcoming school year. Assume the best. I had a middle school student last year that took over every class. He was always making comments, wondering why we had to do certain assignments and getting other students to complain with him. Needless to say, he had a rough year. One teacher said, "We need to work with him more. We need to teach him." Because this student was so difficult, it was hard to want to try with him, and most teachers had given up and were just trying to make it through the year, including me. As I read the chapter on Assume the Best, I knew this other teacher was right. Assume the best. Be on the same side as our students. Treat ourselves and our students with respect and dignity. Take deep breaths and know that in the long run, we will land on our feet. I love the idea of making positive connections for all students. One of my favorite lessons from Smith was his analogy of railroad tracks and trains. Obviously, you can't drive a train without its tracks. The track is known as the permanent way. It is the structure that enables a train to move by providing a dependable surface for the wheels to roll on. The train is useless without its tracks. The same is true for procedures and content. Procedures are the tracks. They are permanent and dependable. Content is the train. Content can easily move once the procedures are laid. Procedures come before content, and in that sense, they need to be given more priority than content. Mr. Smith suggests that teachers teach hand signals to their students. By using these hand signals, the teacher receives more information about what kind of comments are hiding behind the raised hands of her students. For questions, hold up a fist with the pinky extended to show the teacher that I have a question. For answers, students hold up a fist with the thumb facing up to show the teacher, I have an answer. If a student has a comment, student holds up his hand to form the letter C. If a student needs to use the bathroom, he holds up his hand with his middle finger crossed over the forefinger to signal restroom. So many times I am in the middle of lessons and I see hands rise. I always have that inner struggle wondering what they are going to say. Is it really a question, a comment? Do they need something? By simply teaching students to give teachers a clue as to what they are going to ask, we are better prepared as to what is coming and can decide if it is an appropriate time to acknowledge that student. During lessons, I find myself calling on students to answer questions and rewarding them immediately by saying, "Right, good answer." Smith gently reminds us that we should just say, "Thank you," instead, and then call on another student. Even if it is the same answer, many students will have the opportunity to answer the question and be correct. It increases the number of students who participate in the discussion. It encourages students to speak their ideas out loud because they aren't as intimidated about getting an answer wrong, and it focuses the students more on learning than on getting the answer right or impressing the teacher. This is such a simple concept, and I've completely missed the boat. I love this tip to get my classroom to participate. Rick Smith's book is jam-packed with ideas to implement classroom management. Any teacher would benefit from reading his book, and I highly recommend it. Sections are short, manageable, and easy to understand. As you can see from the content, I was thoroughly impressed with his suggestions and see how making tiny changes could potentially make a huge impact on my classroom. We must assume the best from our students. We must teach procedure and lay those tracks before we can add our train of content. I am so excited to have some tools in my back pocket for the upcoming school year.